Welcome to our channel. We hope you enjoy today's video. Enjoy watching.
My boyfriend lost a bet, and the challenge was that I had to kiss his brother right then and there. He didn't even ask if I was okay with it, he just laughed and told his brother, "Santiago, it's all my fault. I put you in a tough spot." I gave my boyfriend a cold stare. I had told him before that his brother had other intentions with me. "What are you thinking?" I asked him. "Santiago comes from a rich family, he wouldn't be interested in someone like you. Don't get your hopes up. What are you compared to him? Why would he even look at you?" I made a clicking sound with my tongue in front of my boyfriend and boldly sat on Santiago's lap, kissing him. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my boyfriend chatting casually with other friends. After the party ended, I received a message from Santiago. That was my first kiss. "You have to take responsibility." I glared at Miguel, my anger simmering inside. He had the nerve to make me kiss his brother over a stupid bet without even asking for my opinion, treating me like an object to use. I took a deep breath, trying to suppress my anger and disappointment. From the beginning of the party, Santiago's gaze had been like a wolf's, fixed on me, making me feel uncomfortable. However, Miguel remained oblivious, laughing and joking with others. I gritted my teeth, deciding it was time to teach him a lesson. Without hesitation, I sat on Santiago's lap and looked him in the eye. The shouts of those around us seemed to fade away, everything became a blur. I closed my eyes and initiated the kiss, pressing my lips against Santiago's. As our tongues touched, I felt Santiago tremble visibly. 5 minutes felt like an eternity, and I forced myself to continue the kiss despite my discomfort. Finally, when the time was up, I got up and looked around. Everyone was staring at me in surprise, while Miguel continued to chat with his friends. I let out a cold laugh and turned to leave the suffocating room. I heard someone mocking Miguel behind me as I crossed the door. "Miguel, aren't you angry that your girlfriend kissed someone else?" someone asked. "What's there to be angry about?" "It wasn't real," Miguel replied with indifference. My heart sank, and I quickened my pace to escape the toxic environment. Once I was home, I locked myself in my room, ignoring Miguel's constant knocking on the door. My phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. I opened it, and a chill ran down my spine. That was my first kiss. "You have to take responsibility." I decided not to respond to Santiago's message and handle the situation coldly. However, days passed, and Miguel still showed no signs of remorse. I felt my heart heavy, as if a massive stone was crushing me, making it hard to breathe. On the 5th night, Miguel appeared at my door with a fizzy tea drink. "I'm sorry, I didn't expect things to turn out like this," he said, handing me the drink with a nonchalant attitude. I accepted it reluctantly, but my resentment hadn't disappeared. I took out my phone and showed Miguel the message from Santiago. "I told you before that he had other intentions with me," I said. Miguel furrowed his brow and replied, "You're not on his level, stop believing so much. He probably just followed the joke." His words cut me like a knife. I felt dizzy and completely disappointed by his lack of respect. We started arguing intensely, and the sweetness of our relationship fragmented in the midst of the discussion. I suddenly remembered Santiago's wolf-like gaze. I found myself at the entrance of the amusement park, feeling disappointed and angry. Miguel had stood me up again. It wasn't the first time. I took a deep breath and decided to enter the park alone and have fun. As soon as I entered, I saw a familiar figure. Santiago was not far away, greeting me and smiling. Miguel had asked him to take me out, explaining that something had come up, and he couldn't make it. A wave of bitterness washed over me. Miguel hadn't even bothered to explain himself. However, seeing Santiago's sunny smile, my mood improved. Instantly, we rode the roller coaster together, and amidst all the screams, I felt a joy that I hadn't experienced in a long time. Santiago bought me something sweet, and the sugar and sweetness spread through my mouth. We chatted about work and life, and the atmosphere was surprisingly pleasant. Without realizing it, I found myself gazing at Santiago's profile in the sunlight, and his features looked especially attractive. Suddenly, I remembered the kiss from a few days ago, and my heart began to accelerate. Santiago seemed to notice my gaze and smiled at me. In that moment, it was as if I was falling into a warm dream. We rode the Ferris wheel together, enjoying the beautiful view of the park from above as the sun set. Santiago gently took my hand, and I didn't pull away, letting the warmth spread through me. After the Ferris wheel, Santiago suggested we explore the park as if we had just lived an adventure together. On the way back home, I realized I had completely forgotten about Miguel. Santiago accompanied me to my door, hesitated for a moment, and then gave me a soft kiss on the cheek. I stood there, watching him walk away, with a sweet sensation growing in my heart. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Miguel. I looked at the screen, and Miguel's message left me with mixed emotions. "Sorry, a friend from abroad returned unexpectedly, and I simply couldn't escape," he wrote. I let out a cold laugh. I was so tired of hearing excuses like that. I couldn't get Santiago's kindness out of my mind, which was a stark contrast to Miguel. I doubted whether I should tell Miguel about my day, but in the end, I decided to remain silent. Just then, my phone vibrated again. It was a message from Santiago. "Did you have fun today? I hope I didn't disappoint you." I couldn't help but smile when I saw the message. I responded quickly, "I had a great time. Thanks for taking me out." Santiago replied almost instantly, "With pleasure. I'd love to go out with you again." My heart beat rapidly, and a strange sensation spread through my chest. I knew this wasn't right, but I simply couldn't stop myself. In the following days, Santiago frequently messaged me, sending me sweet messages every day. Meanwhile, Miguel seemed to fade away into a distant corner of my memory. I knew I was sliding towards a dangerous edge, but I couldn't help it. Every word from Santiago was like an adrenaline rush, taking me deeper and deeper into this. I started to fantasize about what life would be like if I were with Santiago. However, just when I was lost in those sweet thoughts, Santiago sent me a message, a photo of Miguel hugging another girl. The photo showed Miguel embracing an unknown girl, still trying to disguise it and act as if nothing was wrong, hoping that I would eventually go back to being the same girl who fell in love with him. But that morning, when I checked my phone, I found Santiago's message with an image that left me frozen. Miguel was hugging another woman, a stranger, in a pose that couldn't be misinterpreted. I felt my heart sink to the floor. It was as if someone had punched the air out of me. My hands trembled as I held the phone, and in my mind, only one question resonated: why? I had already suspected that Miguel didn't give me the importance that I gave him, but seeing him in that photo, hugging another woman, was like a slap in the face. I wanted to scream, break something, but instead, I decided to remain calm. I repeated to myself that this wasn't going to destroy me, not this time. I was going to have control. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and started thinking of a plan, a way to make both Miguel and Santiago understand that I wasn't a trophy for their game. I decided to maintain my calm and let the day flow like any other, without Miguel or Santiago suspecting what was going on in my mind. As the minutes passed, I felt my determination grow. That night, Miguel had invited me to a party at one of his friends' houses, and it seemed like the perfect opportunity to execute my plan. I accepted the invitation with a fake smile and decided that I wouldn't be the one to confront them first. I wanted them to feel secure, as if I didn't know anything, and then, at the perfect moment, I would leave them speechless. On the way to the party, my thoughts were clear and cold, like never before. We arrived at the house, filled with lights and loud music, and I found myself surrounded by a familiar atmosphere, but something inside me had changed. I no longer felt that connection with Miguel, or even with that group of friends that used to be so common to me. As soon as we arrived, Miguel got distracted, conversing with others, and that only reinforced my decision. I started to distance myself, looking for Santiago, and found him in a corner with a smile on his lips and that usual brazen gaze. When he saw me, he approached me without hesitation, and it was then that I started to act. Santiago looked at me with that intensity that always made me uncomfortable, a mix of confidence and arrogance that seemed to invade every space between us. However, this time, I decided not to avoid his gaze. Instead, I held it, letting him think he had some kind of control over me. I slowly approached him, letting him believe that I was also drawn to him. He smiled, as if he had already won, and offered me a drink. I took it without saying a word, letting the silence build the tension between us. My mind was already calculating each step, each word I would say to expose them both. After a few minutes, I told him I needed to talk to him in private. His expression changed, as if he was excited by the idea that I was seeking him out instead of his brother. We moved away from the noise, and I told him, with a soft voice, "I think you should know what I really think of you and your brother." His face showed a slight surprise, but he maintained that smile of superiority, which was exactly what I wanted, for him to feel confident, to lower his guard before what was about to happen. "You know," I continued, looking him straight in the eye, "I've noticed how you look at me and how you enjoy every moment that Miguel leaves me alone." Santiago laughed, as if that was a fun game, and that's when I felt a mix of disgust and satisfaction, seeing how he fell into my trap without suspecting. I moved closer, almost whispering, "Maybe you're right," I said, feigning vulnerability. "Maybe I've realized too late that you're different." The spark in his eyes intensified, believing he had won, and then, at the perfect moment, before he could say another word, I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo of Miguel with the other girl. His expression froze, and his eyes widened in surprise. "What is this?" he murmured, trying to recover his composure. "This is what you and your brother really are, two fakes who play with people's feelings." I let my words sink in, enjoying every second of his bewilderment. The smile on Santiago's face vanished, and for the first time, I saw something like shame in his eyes. He tried to say something, to justify himself, but I didn't let him. "You know what hurts the most?" I said, feeling my own voice crack a little. "It's realizing that I was just a trophy for you guys, a mere entertainment in your stupid competition." I took a deep breath, letting the weight of my words fall on him. Santiago tried to approach me, to put a hand on my shoulder, but I pushed him away with a coldness that made him flinch. "Don't dare to touch me," I warned him, feeling a deep contempt. Taking advantage of the moment, I turned towards the main room where Miguel was still laughing and chatting with his friends, as if nothing mattered in the world. As I approached, I felt all eyes turn towards me, expectant. I didn't wait any longer, I confronted Miguel in front of everyone. "I want you to explain to everyone here why I saw you in this photo with another girl," I said loudly, showing him the image on my phone. A murmur of surprise ran through the room, and Miguel looked at me, visibly uncomfortable, trying to come up with an excuse. But it was too late. Miguel tried to stammer out an explanation, saying it was just a friend he was consoling, but his voice trembled, and his gaze avoided mine. "Just a friend, Miguel? Do you think I'm stupid?" I asked, my voice a mix of fury and disappointment. I could feel everyone around us holding their breath, waiting for his response, but he just remained silent, as if he finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. I felt a deep pity for him, not because I was exposing him, but because in that moment, I clearly saw that he had never been the man I thought he was. To drive the point home, I turned towards Santiago, who was watching the scene from the back of the room like a spectator trapped in his own trap. "You're no better than him," I said, raising my voice so everyone could hear. "You were capable of betraying your own brother just to satisfy your ego. You're just as pathetic." The surprise on his face was a spectacle, and in that moment, I felt my revenge was complete. I had managed to put them in their place, expose their lies and arrogance in front of everyone. After my declaration, a sepulchral silence fell over the room. No one seemed to know how to react, and the atmosphere felt so tense that it was as if the air itself had stopped. I observed how some of Miguel's and Santiago's friends murmured among themselves, exchanging disbelieving and disapproving glances. In that instant, I realized that I had not only destroyed the image they had of themselves, but also revealed who they truly were to their own friends. I felt a mix of satisfaction and liberation, as if a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Without waiting another second, I turned around and headed towards the door. I knew there was nothing left for me in that place or among those people. As I walked, I heard Miguel's voice calling out to me, begging me to listen, but I didn't even stop. The door closed behind me with a bang, and the echo of my footsteps resonated in the night as I walked away. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but one thing was certain, I would never be the same person who had entered that party. As I walked, I felt a mix of emotions swirling around Miguel and Santiago, but also a deep sadness at realizing how much I had let them hurt me. The night was cold, and each step I took made me feel a little lighter, as if every meter of distance erased a part of the scars I had accumulated in those years of relationship. I thought about all the times I had overlooked their attitudes, their disdain, and Miguel's indifference, only to end up being betrayed in the most humiliating way possible. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. I looked at the screen and saw a message from Santiago. "You're a manipulator, but I like you that way." I felt a wave of disgust wash over me. Even after everything, he still thought this was a game. I didn't respond, I simply blocked his number. Then, I saw a message from Miguel. "I'm sorry, let's talk, please." His words seemed empty, insignificant. There was nothing left to say, nothing to fix. It was time to put an end to this story, not with forgiveness, but with a definitive closure. I put my phone in my pocket and looked up, letting the fresh air clear my mind. I had arrived at a nearby park, one of those places where we used to walk when everything seemed fine between us. But now, the tranquility of that place reminded me of how far I was from those days and how much I had changed. I sat down on a bench and allowed myself a few minutes to process everything that had just happened. Although I felt hurt, I also experienced a strange sensation of freedom. I had broken free from the false image of that relationship, from the lies and deceptions. I no longer had to carry the doubts, the suspicions, or the pain of betrayal. As time passed, I began to see clearly that this experience was not only a defeat but also an opportunity to start anew. The memories of that night were still fresh, and I knew it would take time to heal completely, but I also understood that I had learned an important lesson about respect and dignity. I promised myself that I would never again allow someone to treat me like an object or underestimate me. That night had been a test, and I had come out stronger, more secure in who I was and what I deserved. Finally, I got up from the bench and started walking towards my house, feeling that each step took me further away from that part of my life that I had left behind. The night was silent, as if the world was respecting my moment of closure. When I arrived at my door, I took a deep breath and looked around, taking in the emptiness left by those people who I once considered important. As I entered, I realized that my life was mine alone now, without the shadows of Miguel and Santiago. I was free, and although it still hurt, that freedom was the true victory. I lay down and, for the first time in a long time, felt peace. I knew that the wound would heal with time, and when I looked back, I wouldn't see this experience as a tragedy, but as the chapter that taught me to value myself truly. I closed my eyes with the certainty that this was the end, not only of a relationship but of a stage in which I allowed others to define my happiness. Now, I was ready to write a new story, one in which only I had control of each page.